Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another segment. Today, I have Josée Lemoine from Farm Lending Canada joining us. Josée, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Tracy?
Good. I'm so excited to be speaking to you about Farm Lending Canada's alternative lending solutions. And we're going to go one step deeper in this episode and talk about how you guys work with other lending institutions and advisors. So, welcome. And what I would like to do is get you to share a little bit more about yourself, your role, and then we'll talk about Farm Lending Canada.
Sounds great. Thank you. Yes, so I am newer to Farm Lending Canada. I joined the organization in September of 2024, and I'm VP of Business Development for Agriculture. And so I've spent the last 25 years as a management consultant and the last 5.5 years specifically working in agriculture as a farm management consultant. And it was about 7 months ago that I decided to specialize a little bit more and switched from what I call the agricultural niche to yet another niche within agriculture. So, really niche, getting into alternative lending in the ag space. So, I'm really excited to be part of this team and working to help see Canadian farms thrive.
Love it. Okay, we've been doing a series with Farmland in Canada. We've done a few segments, we'll do a few more, and we're sharing about your alternative lending solutions. For those that haven't caught the previous segments, would you like to share a little bit more about who Farm Lending Canada is and what you guys do?
For sure. Yeah. So I actually first met Farm Lending Canada in 2019. So I met Rob Nelson, who is the founder and CEO, as well as Sean Buston. And they were focusing on agricultural lending. So it was really interesting to learn more about their organization. And it really is over the last 6 years that the organization has evolved. Now, Farm Lending Canada has a longer history than that. It's been around for, since early 2000. And our team is comprised of a lot of different members with varying levels of background in agriculture. Some are farmers themselves, so that's very exciting. Some have, extensive experience in lending. And really, the primary passion at Farm Lending Canada is to lend to farmers. And we lend to those farmers that, for whatever reason, aren't qualifying for conventional lending. And this could be for a number of reasons. It could be timing. Right after, we have those bad years. They're not all good. And so it could be for new opportunities, something that they're trying to capitalize on more often than not, trying to buy some more dirt. But sometimes it's other things and diversifying on their farm. And transition can really bring its own set of challenges on a farm family business. And so, yeah, we had Rob who kind of introduced the organization. Tom has presented about our rural residential hobby farms. I'm talking to you today about our relationships with farm advisors, and we've got a few more to go that will talk specifically about our agricultural lending products and also our investment fund, Agri Roots. So.
Love it. Thanks for sharing. So, I want to ask you this. Does Farm Lending Canada provide advisory services as well?
So great question. And it's really just a nuanced answer. So, of course, we do provide advice as it relates to lending.
Okay.
Um, but within that lens, we are looking holistically at the organization. So we want to understand about the farm's history, what What are the key milestones? What are some of the most recent events that may have caused some of the challenges or some of the opportunities that they're coming to us with? What's their relationship with their current lenders and where they want to go. So in that, we are collaborating with the farmer themselves, often the borrower, um, and their farm advisors. So we know that running a farm business is a lot of work, requires a lot of expertise in a number of different areas. And like any business owner, sometimes we don't know it all. And so we like to surround ourselves with people that might have a deeper expertise. And farming is no different. And so when I think of who we collaborate with at Farm Lending Canada, very often might be a farm advisor that the farm is working with. So another consultant that is helping them work on the business of farming. There will likely be accountants in there. We need some financial statements, and so there might be some questions that we need to ask there. And certainly it's about understanding where they want to go. So there might be some estate planning questions, there might be some legal questions, and certainly when it comes to borrowing, we will eventually talk to a lawyer when it comes to fulfillment. But I mentioned that sometimes when farmers are coming to us in alternative lending, there might be some distressed conversations or some challenging conversations, and we also want to make sure that the farm is well looked after and that they've got hopefully some health and wellness advisors kind of coaching them along. But ultimately our goal is to take some of that pressure off and allow them to find some options for lending or borrowing on their from their case, and allowing them to then focus more on the operations for that next year.
Love it. When I heard about Farm Lending Canada and the solutions you guys have, the alternative solutions you have, I was super excited, Josée. I know you know how we operate here. I work with farmers to help them have the ideas, the people that will impact their farming operation, mental health. And here's the thing, I've often wondered, there's things that can just happen, that perfect storm. We've said that before, where they end up in a situation. And then I'll focus maybe on this situation where the banker says, no. I'm like, but no, no can't be no. So I was so excited when I learned about what you guys are doing because it's a much needed support in the industry. Now, one step further to that, in this segment, we're speaking directly to those farm advisors, and there's so many of them in our audience. And I can't help but think and know how powerful it would be for every farm advisor to know about this, whether it is that debt mediator, that counselor, the accountant, the lawyer. So, if there is somebody in the audience that works with farmers, speaking directly to them, how would farm advisors collaborate with you guys to help serve their farm clients?
Right. And first question, or the first thing that they could do is give us a call. I mean, that's always the easiest way to share information is through a conversation. And we really are there to find solutions. So trying to understand what got them into the situation and why their current lender is not necessarily wanting to lend them money. So of any farm advisor, the many that you listed, would just call me, for example, and say, oh, here's the situation. Here's what we're looking at. Here's why we think alternative lending might be an opportunity. And then from there, that's how the relationship really gets started. And there's no commitment until there's a commitment. And so we really start with a discovery process, which can be very quick. So if that farm advisor has, some basic information, so I call it the executive summary of the farm. So again, what are those key milestones of the farm? What kind of got them into this situation or what created this opportunity for them, and what are they looking for? Like, how much money are we talking about? And what kind of land do they have? So this is a good time to mention and remind everyone we are asset-based lenders. So we do need land as collateral for the loan. And so then we want to quickly understand, what are the mortgages against that land, who owns it, and what kind of loan to value could we be looking at? And that's really the beginning of the conversation. From there, we certainly like to receive some financial statements, ideally 3 years. If we can get kind of the corporate structure of the farm. So is it a sole proprietorship? Is it a partnership? Is there a corporation? A little bit of everything? How many people are farming? Who's looking to borrow? And then that allows us to pull together a discussion paper. And that discussion paper is then shared with the farmer and any advisor that they would like to bring. And we have a discussion about it. So what are the questions that you might have? I'll say that the discussion paper is quite similar to conversations you would have had with a regular lender. There might be a few different things. So, we'll spend anywhere from half hour to an hour answering questions, giving them time to reflect. There's opportunity to counter on that discussion paper. And then once they agree that they'd like to move forward, that's where we formally start the process. They sign off on the consent. There is an administration fee, and then we move into the formal underwriting. So all of that can happen in a day to 5 days.
Oh,
If you're
wow.
not very organized in your paperwork, it might take longer. And then from there, the underwriting and fulfillment. And with the fulfillment, there's just a lot of legal steps that need to happen. So that can vary as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for
Mhm.
walking me through that. I would actually like to dig a little deeper too and go into an example. Can you share an example of where a farmer came to you? They needed alternative lending for whatever reason,
Mhm.
and they were successful with you, and then it all worked out and they were successfully exited back to a conventional lender. Can you share an
Yeah, I mean, those are
example?
the good news stories,
Yeah,
right?
let's do it.
And so, yeah, and we'd have 90 of those examples. So in our short history, we've worked with 90 farmers,
90,
um,
90.
90.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
lot of success stories. Sorry to
yeah, that is
jump in there.
great. No worries. And so I could go over a lot of examples, but let me use a Saskatchewan-based farmer that was facing some significant challenges. It was cow calf and cash crop, and they had made the decision to transition, so sell the cattle and move 100% to cash crop. So the challenge was the rent on the 3,000 acres that they were renting increased by 116%. So really forcing them to reduce acres. There was a drought, compounding losses, the shift from the cow calf to cash cropping, leading them to then, be in breach of some covenants with the bank. And so just like you mentioned earlier, kind of a perfect storm, but in this case, not a great storm. And so again, the kind of that what do we do now? How do we get out of this? We don't want to sell the farm. And in this case, we were able to do the evaluation and look at restructuring the position of the client for looking at them to try and get 1 to 2 years of stable farming, and that's not always predictable, but in this case it worked out. They were able to get back on track and show some positive performance, which then, regained the confidence of a conventional lender. And so we were able to exit them within a couple of years. So the win for that is as I'd mentioned earlier. So we took the financial stress away from the farmer so that they were able to focus on that crop for the year. So seeding and the harvesting and then marketing that grain. So it bought them time, able to strengthen their balance sheet and financial statement, and then exit back to a conventional lender. I should add, so this is a Saskatchewan example. We are based out of Chatham, Ontario, but we do lend across Canada. So I could give examples both Western Canada and Eastern Canada equally. And they're similar and different in all the ways. We are certainly looking for new opportunities to lend, and so looking at really supporting farmers in transition. So perhaps there's some restructuring that needs to happen before they can do a full succession plan. And so these are all opportunities where alternative lending, because our investor base is private, it is under their terms that we can lend. And so that's where the flexibility comes in.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Examples really bring it to life and it makes it feel real, right? To the audience.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, I relate. We know how that is, right? And then you
Yeah.
walk through. So that's great. So if there is a farm advisor in the audience or farmer, you can speak to them both
Mhm.
together separately. How would they approach you? We chatted a little bit about that before, but what would be the best way to connect and start the process?
Yeah, and like I said, I think a live conversation is always better. And so we have our direct line that they can call, and that would give them access to myself and the rest of the business development team. And that's where you would start that conversation. Here's the scenario. Does this qualify for alternative lending? And the questions that we would run through are like I said, tell me a little bit about the history. Tell us about the current situation. What do the financials look like? Do they have kind of a sense of how much money they'd like to borrow and what they would like to use it for? And then what is their desired exit?
Oh, wow.
An exit means, we want to get back to conventional lending. There may be the decision that they want to sell part of the farm, and that could be part of the planned exit. What we want to make sure is that in our conversations that it is planned and not forced. So we want to be able to give everyone the time to make those calm decisions, if I can call them that. If a phone call is still not what you like, you can send an email to dealdesk@farmlending.ca. But I would suggest that in that email, you provide the same information so that we are in a better position to kind of give you advice as to what the next steps would be.
I love it. And we'll put all those contact details in the show notes as well.
Sure.
So if you're listening, go to Farm Marketer, Impact Farming Show, find the episode. It's all there. Go to the website. Like Josée said, phone numbers, we'll have it all. So thank you for sharing that. And again, you touched on this. What kind of information would a farm advisor need to provide? Do you want to go deeper? I know you did share before.
Yeah, so because I've been talking about kind of that cursory information,
Okay.
but certainly once we get into it, um, there would be a know your client document. There would be some consent forms that would need to be shared. There will be some identification that you'll need to provide. We certainly like to get a list of the properties, and as well, if there are any mortgages or positions that they're already being used for. Again, depending on the structure of the farm, and we would certainly work with you to determine, if you're sole proprietor, then we need some personal tax returns and net worth statements. If you're partnership incorporated, then we'll require some different information. But ideally, we would like some historical financial information. Accrued is best, if available, depending on the amount. of the loan that you're looking for. We may, and how long it's been since there's been an appraised value or change of land in the area. We may need some appraisals. Um, and we may also look for projections, at least 12-month projections. And depending again on the complexity, we may ask as long as 3 years. Now, this is all dependent on your situation, which is why we like to have that first conversation. But be prepared that these documents will be requested. And the faster then you can get them to us, then the more efficient we can be in our evaluation.
Sense. Okay, excellent. So, two quick reminders for anyone in the audience, a farmer, farm advisor. If they want to check out the previous segments, this one, and stay tuned to the next ones that are coming, do so. If this is a conversation that is interesting to you or a product that's interesting to you. The other thing is check out the show notes for contact information. And I think that covers what we want to talk about, Josée.
Our website, that's
Your
a
website?
great source of information,
Okay,
farmlending.ca. Super easy.
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
And we'll include those in the show notes. Josée, thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation. I know I feel like a bit of a broken record, but I love what you guys are doing. I've said it in previous segments. I'm saying it here because sometimes those perfect storms happen. And in agriculture, we need these types of options to keep the family farm going. And that's our mission here at the show, me as a farmer. And I know you guys share that same vision as well. So thank you, Josée, for sharing. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you. Looking forward to many conversations.
I love it. And you guys in the audience, if you enjoyed this episode, like it, share it, get it out there, because I'll say it again, every farmer needs to hear this great information. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.